Have you ever been lying in bed, just unable to do much of anything, and that voice in your head pops up? Am I just lazy? It's a really harsh question, right? But the answer might be a whole lot more complex than you think. So let's dive in and really figure out the difference between being lazy and being genuinely burnt out.
That question can seriously eat away at you, especially when your motivation just hits rock bottom. You look around, you see other people pushing forward, and you can't help but wonder, what is wrong with me? Well, let's get some real clarity on that exact feeling, so you know what you're actually up against and what you can do about it.
Okay, so first things first, let's start by defining what we're actually talking about here. Because trust me, putting the right name to what you're feeling, that's the absolute first step toward taking back control.
And just look at the scale of this thing. If this is how you're feeling, you are so far from being alone. A survey found that a staggering 75% of adults in the U.S. have felt symptoms of burnout. This isn't some personal failing. It's a huge, widespread modern problem. So what is it really? Burnout isn't just about feeling tired. It's a state of total exhaustion. We're talking emotional, physical, and mental. And it's all brought on by stress that's just gone on for way too long. Think of it like a biological state where your brain and your body's resources are just completely drained. It's a really serious place to be. So, how do you know if this is what's happening to you? Let's run through a quick diagnostic checklist. This is based on research from Psych2Go, and I want you to just see if these 6 signs sound familiar. All right, let's walk through these. First up is disconnection, that feeling like you're detached, maybe just going through the motions on autopilot. Second, lost motivation, a real apathy for things you used to be great at. Third is lost passion, even for hobbies you once loved. Then you've got irritability, becoming moody and feeling emotionally out of control. Fifth is self-care neglect, things like your eating or sleeping patterns getting all messed up. And finally, number 6, a gradual onset. This isn't something that just happens overnight. It creeps up on you. And this is the crucial clue right here. See, laziness is often seen as just an aversion to effort, maybe even a choice. But burnout is a change. It's an inability to exert effort. If you used to be a high achiever, you were self-motivated, and now you feel completely apathetic, that is a massive sign you're dealing with burnout, not some character trait. And you can really see the emotional difference here. Burnout often brings this feeling of being snappy, irritable, out of control. Ask yourself, do you feel emotionally volatile? Because laziness is the total opposite. It's usually associated with being kind of placid and relaxed, not really affected by much.
And here's the thing about burnout. It's sneaky. It actually develops in stages. It might start with a honeymoon phase of super high energy, but that can lead to the onset of stress, which turns into chronic stress. By stage 4, you've hit full-blown burnout. And if that keeps going, you reach the final stage, habitual burnout, where that exhaustion is so deep, it's incredibly hard to climb out of.
Okay, so we've kind of diagnosed the problem, but just knowing you might have burnout isn't enough. How we think about it is just as important. And that brings us to this whole question of mindset. Do you see yourself as fixed, or do you believe you can actually grow? Here's the core idea. Calling yourself lazy is a classic fixed mindset. It's basically saying, this is just who I am and I can't change it. But a growth mindset totally reframes the problem. It sees mental resilience not as something you're born with, but as a skill that you can actively build day by day. This quote from David Goggins just perfectly captures what a relentless growth mindset looks like. He doesn't see his mental state as fixed. He sees it as something that needs constant work, constant reinvention, just to stay strong. It's not about a one-time fix. It is a continuous, ongoing process.
So how do you build that resilience? Well, it's not by shouting affirmations at yourself in the mirror. It's built on what Alex Hormozi calls a stack of undeniable proof. Every single time you do something hard, every time you manage to get out of bed when you don't want to, you're adding to that stack. You build real confidence through action, not just through thought.
So, let's get practical. How do you actually start building that stack of proof when you're feeling totally exhausted? Well, it starts by taking control of your environment. It starts by learning to become your own thermostat.
I absolutely love this metaphor from brain coach Jim Quick. Are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? Think about it. A thermometer just reacts. The weather, your clients, your inbox, whatever's happening around you dictates how you feel. But a thermostat sets the environment. It decides on a goal and the environment has to rise up to meet it. You become proactive instead of reactive.
So how do you become a thermostat? There's a brilliant and shockingly simple tool for this called Sean Auker's 20-second rule.
basically a way to use your natural laziness to your own advantage by re-engineering your environment.
The rule is so simple. For a good habit you want to build, just make it 20 seconds easier to start. And for a bad habit you want to break, you do the opposite. You make it 20 seconds harder to start. This tiny little shift works because our brains are fundamentally wired to follow the path of least resistance. You're just redirecting that path.
Let's see how this actually works. Sean Acor, the guy who came up with this rule, wanted to practice his guitar more and watch less TV. The problem? The guitar was in a closet, which took about 20 seconds to get out. Just enough friction for him to not bother. His solution? He put it on a stand right in his living room. Then, he took the batteries out of his TV remote and put them in another room. The path of least resistance totally changed, and so did his habits.
So, what are the big takeaways here? First, remember that burnout is a real state of exhaustion from prolonged stress. It is not a flaw in your character. Second, your mindset is everything. You can choose a growth mindset and build your mental resilience through small, consistent actions. And finally, you can become a thermostat for your own life by using simple tools like the 20-second rule to set your environment up for success.
So I'll leave you with this question. David Goggins talks about building his mental lab, a place of focused work. But for a lot of us, our mind feels more like a cluttered garage where you can't find anything. By choosing to be the thermostat for your life, you get to decide. So, which one will you choose to build today?